Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Council to order. Our clerk today will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. I would ask for a procedural motion to proceed in camera. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favour? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 10th regular meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. Tonight's regular meeting of Council will be held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. The question period sign-up sheet is on the table by the double doors to my left for agenda items only. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, please write down your name and agenda item on the sheet. Members have also been granted the opportunity to attend electronically, and I can state tonight that Councillor Gesselbrock is there joining us tonight electronically. And the first item on the agenda, Ms. Gurry, is late items, and we have a number.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. For agenda item delegations unrelated to agenda items, we are adding a delegation from Bern Muller, Salvation Army New Hope Center, re the breakfast meal program. We're adding a delegation from Ben Glasson regarding East Wellington Farm Park. For agenda item 12B, development permit application number DP 1293 for 582 Bradley Street, we're adding a delegation from Raymond DeBeeld. For agenda item 12E, liquor license application number LA154 for Unit 2, 5771 Turner Road, we're adding a delegation from Dave Din. We're adding new agenda heading number 13, correspondence, and reordering subsequent agenda headings, and adding correspondence dated July 7th, 2023 from Tom McCarthy, Deputy Minister, regarding rezoning application RA475. And we're adding agenda items Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 4500.204, and Land Use Contract Discharge Bylaw 2022, number 7355, under Agenda Item 14, Bylaws for Adoption. And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gurry. Motion for adoption. The agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Eastmere. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. A motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the Mayor's report, and because of the intervention of the holiday, I have a number of things to say, and I'll try to say them quickly before we get to what shall I say is the most important part of the Mayor's report tonight. Firstly, I hope all of you paid attention and have seen that Council has given the green light to the Terminal Avenue Upgrade Project. That will be a very important refurbishing, if you will, and upgrading of the storm sewers and water mains while Terminal is undergoing reconstruction. It'll begin in early July and continue into late spring 2024. And this project includes rerouting sidewalks at Pioneer Square Park and the Italian Fountain to provide a buffer to pedestrians from terminal bus pullouts. for the #1 downtown country club bus, upgraded street lighting for vehicles and increased lighting through the Italian Fountain Park for pedestrians, improved crossings at Commercial, etc. I think people will be very excited by this. Back on June the 21st, in a ceremony celebrated at National Indigenous Peoples Day, the new welcome pole, a beautiful creation of Snuneymuxw master carver Noel Brown, was officially welcomed, or unveiled, if you will, at Fire Station #1. The new fire hall replaces an aging structure that was built in 1966, which wasn't that long ago for some of us, but they still refer to it as an aging structure in the press release. It is home to Fire Rescue Operations, Emergency Operations Center, and the Fire Rescue Command and the Business Center. It's built to post-disaster standards and is designed to serve the needs of Nanaimo today, reflecting not only the character of the community, but also keeping in mind being able to deal with a major disaster in the future. And speaking of potential disasters, we sent out a release asking homeowners to be fire smart and protect your property. You can play an important role in wildfire prevention because even though we are a city, there is a lot of green space in Nanaimo, and that green space gets dry. There are several things you can do to make a home fire smart. The homeowner should consider the construction of the home itself, obviously, but the yard and the landscaping, the vegetation and fuels surrounding it, and property access as well. So be prepared. Very happy announcement back on June the 23rd. Parks, Recreation and Culture crews installed Moby mats at 3 new locations: Colliery Dam Park, Neck Point Park, and Loudon Park. A Moby mat, for the uninitiated, is installed seasonally. Obviously, it's a non-slip walkway made from recycled material and helps those with wheels, whether they be wheelchairs, strollers, wagons, kayak trailers, or whatever, to be able to more easily access our beach areas. These mats were installed following a successful pilot of one on Departure Bay Beach last summer, and that's returned this year near the Kin Hut. We also, on June 19th, at the 2023 council meeting, passed 3 readings of the boring bylaw for the first phase of the Nanaimo Operations Center project. For the uninitiated again, that's the Labio Road Public Works site. That boring bylaw will now be sent to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs for review and approval by the Inspector of Municipalities, and presuming it will be approved, we will begin the alternative approval process to bore up to $48.5 million for the project's first phase. That will include replacing the existing fleet and maintenance facility, a truck wash and a dump facility, as well as site servicing for future phases, replacing stormwater management facilities on site, as well as building a stormwater retention pond in Bevan Park at the corner of Dorman and Labio, retrofitting the training tower located at Fire Station 2, where a number of firefighters from around this province have received training over the years, and building a multi-use pathway along the Labio side of Bevan Park. Once approval is received from the province, the city will begin the alternative approval process on September 27th, and it will run until November the 3rd. We've also put out an expression of interest for the rather famous or infamous, depending on how you might regard it, Old Gene Burns site at 6 Commercial, on our premier intersection, if you will, in the city of Nanaimo. Commercial, as I always refer to as our High Street and Terminal Avenue. Council is keen to see this high-profile site brought back into productive use. The development complements a range of capital investments planned by the city for the downtown core in the next few years, and that includes the Terminal Avenue trench work that I've discussed, the redevelopment of Commercial Street in the fall of 2023, and the city is working with BC Transit and the Regional District of Nanaimo to create a new transit hub next door as well, starting in 2024. In addition, the private sector continues to make significant investments in the downtown. The new courtyard by Marriott opened in the spring of 2023. TELUS has broken ground on a new 200-unit residential project, and other residential projects are anticipated to begin construction by the end of the year. We also have a new mountain bike skills park in Harewood Centennial Park, just in time for the summer holidays. Those who want to participate in that sport, you'll have a new place to test your skills. City Parks crews completed the project at Harewood Centennial Park with the construction of a new mountain bike skills park, and that opened on Friday, June the 30th. It was done in partnership with the Steve Smith Foundation, whose expertise was used in the design and construction of the project. The park is designated as a green level or entry-level bike park for riders, and the aim is to help a whole generation and a group of new and young riders to gain the skills in a controlled environment and to build them into good, safe riders who can explore the vast areas of network of Nanaimo mountain bike trails, including those traversed by Councillor Himmons to my left, who's an avid mountain biker, who had the gall earlier today to remind me that she was doing her emails from the knoll up at Westwood Lake when I was chained to my desk downtown. Thank you for sharing that. The city also invites groups to apply for funds to prevent youth gun and gang violence. We have received a youth resilience grant funded by Public Safety Canada. They were distributed under the Building Safer Communities Fund and will be handled through the City of Nanaimo in the early fall of 2023 this year. The Nanaimo Youth Resilience Strategy Grant Fund has more than $1 million available to fund programs for youth operated by local organizations. We're one of only 22 municipalities selected to receive the funding, and grant applications are open as of July the 10th to August 14th, with the programs to launch in the fall of 2023. Given the rather, I will say still even yet, unseasonably warm weather, the city has to announce that we have entered a level 4 drought on the east coast of Anchor Island, and the City of Nanaimo is therefore moving to stage 3 watering restrictions. This level of restrictions maintains the even and odd watering framework as in stage 2, while we're asking residents to further reduce water use to avoid a watering ban. And hopefully with the cooperation you can do that. As I've said many times before, this city has been able to put out by several decades potentially $100 million plus project, which would see the existing dam having to be raised in order to secure safe, secure water supply for the city. So I encourage the citizens of Nanaimo to continue doing what they've done and how shall I say, enhance their efforts. And this is the part where I'm not going to break down and cry and sniffle like I have on other occasions. But tonight is the last council meeting that our CAO, Jake Rudolph, will attend in his capacity as our Chief Administrative Officer. The man who courageously took on that job when the city was perceived certainly to be in some difficulties, and I say that it's the mildest description I can use, over 5 years ago. He has demonstrated throughout his time here incredible professionalism. He has shown the kind of leadership that, frankly, I can say this, as I've said many times before, led to the recognition by his peers, which is the presidency of the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators, which is as high as you can go in that organization, and it deserves to be recognized again tonight. I can say, as I've said before, this council is extremely grateful for having had his service for the last 5+ years. We wouldn't be where we are today. We wouldn't be what I think all of us can say with a certain amount of pride and ego, a city that is now recognized for good governance, for a council that can work together in an amicable and friendly fashion and get things done, as opposed to what has happened in other jurisdictions. I'm very happy, as I teasingly announced last time, that Mr. Rudolph has now attained the most outstanding status one can in life, though if you're interested in children. He is a grandfather for the first time, much anticipated and long waited for, no pressure on his children, of course. But I'm very pleased tonight to recognize also someone whose presence I'm sure he'll recognize, and that is his wife, Mona Rudolph, who retired a couple years ago. It just seems like yesterday. Jake has been supported throughout a 42-year career in public service by the, I can say this without giggling or trying to be funny, by a fine, outstanding career professional herself, whose support and willingness to put up with the long hours of absence that were consistent with his career and nevertheless still remain happily married to him. That is one of the great compliments of life. If you want to stick a couple of good horses in a team, they can go a long ways, and these two have done that together. And so without going on too long, because I don't want to be longer than Jake tonight, I just want to say a public thank you to Mona, and a very sincere public thank you once again, and for what will be the final public occasion, apart from a rather, I suspect, well-attended event that'll occur at the Sark building on Wednesday. A very sincere public thank you to Jake Rudolph for everything you have done for this city, and in the service of your country, across this country, working in municipal governance and providing an example to all of us of what you can do when you're a serious, and he is a serious guy. Mona's smiling. He jokingly responded to teasing once, I have to tell you this, that he said, well, I have a feeling. Let's just say he's a model public servant, and tonight I just want to say again, thank you, Jake. And tonight we're going to breach the rules. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. That was very flattering and generous and appreciated. And I do want to acknowledge my wife, Mona, who's here, who's been with this whole 42-year plus journey for us. We've been married over 40 years now. So we actually met in the workplace in Alberta 1,000 years ago. Well, it was 42 years ago. And so I wanted to bring her in here tonight to make sure that she can believe that I actually was at work on Monday nights for all those years, and so she understands there's a physical place to what she saw on TV. So thank you very much. I do want to say just a couple of comments. My main issue here is to give thanks to you, to staff, to the community. My wife. So I came here on an 8-month assignment, and I stayed 60 months. And it's hard to leave, but it's the right thing to do. There's a big picture in life, and the most important part of it is sitting back there. We have a grandchild. And I want to spend time there. I think we're in a good spot with this city. I've not only been here for 60 months, I've been here for 2 elections. I've worked with 3 councils. That's hard to believe. I got elected and brought in by the first council, and I was very appreciative of that. And Mayor McKay at the time, that was an honor, and they took a risk on me, and I took a risk on. I guess coming here, I was told by a lot of people, you're crazy. I was even told by some of the councillors of the day, you're crazy. And I didn't think I was. And they actually were very generous with me to a person. So I don't want to say anything disparaging about them. They were super supportive. And I had none of that baggage from before. We lived through COVID. We lived through record levels of development in this past 5 years. We went through a lot of organizational change and build. We dealt with a lot of governance issues from top to bottom, from policies to procedures to fiscal management to all sorts of things. It's not done, but a lot of that type of thing. City plan was a big undertaking, and that was completed. We built a fire hall, we did the much coveted Metro Drive, and embarked on a very significant capital project in that water project. And as the mayor mentioned, I did serve as president of CAMA in the meat of COVID. And that organization normally meets 3 to 4 times a year. We met 18 times online, so it was a very intense period. And my job there was to comfort the CAOs across the country. So that was challenging, but I did my best. So I just want to say, I think the foundation is set. The mayor has said himself that the first term that you served as mayor, and many of your council here today, was a foundational term. And I do believe that. And now you have a strategic framework. You've got all kinds of policies and procedures in place. You've done a lot of fiscal planning with debt management, reserves, long-term capital, all those types of things have been done, actually a lot of them by this current council. You're building off of the city plan and working on the implementation strategy. You set up and now are implementing the systems planning organization, the Prosperity Corporation, the Tourism Society, all new, and the Mayor's Leaders Table, all in play starting out right now. So you can see the future is going to be very interesting. We've also laid the groundwork for some significant decision-making for 4 or 5 or 6, or I don't know how many major capital projects that are currently unfunded. And so that's the future. You're going to see short-term results with the Harewood Turf Field and a lot of capital projects. So I know that's something that people will see around town, and there's a lot of little things. I was just reflecting the other day on how many smaller projects have already been done this year. A pedestrian bridge in Bowen, a traffic circle in the north end that everybody loves. You know, so there's a new parking lot at Westwood, and there's another one I was thinking of. But so there's lots of things happening there. So I think the city's in a good position. I think council is doing the right thing by showing good governance and providing that stability that staff need, that the community is asking for, that predictability, and that will serve everybody well. So I want to thank you and everybody else, and I'll try to keep my act together better on Wednesday, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rudolph. We have nothing on the Horizon report, Ms. Gurry. We have no presentations. Committee minutes are for receipt. Motion. Does anyone want anything removed from the consent items, by the way? If not, I would ask for a motion for adoption of the consent items. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We now have delegations unrelated to agenda items, and the first up tonight is Gordon Fuller, Nanaimo 710 Club Society, re the Joint Salvation Army / 710 Club Society breakfast distribution. Mr. Fuller, please. Welcome.
Thank you. It's only taken me 5 years to come back here. And I was here when Jake came on board, and I'm now here when he's leaving. I think that's something. I think, by and large, I think things are going good because people aren't complaining. So well done, folks. So I'm here to talk a little bit about one of the programs we ran that in partnership with the Salvation Army that was funded through the city of Nanaimo. And what we have been doing for the last couple of months, I was approached by Christy Wood back in April or early May to take on distributing food into the community, like hot meals. The Salvation Army had secured the White Spot, and we were partnering with them to be the delivery of that. It's something we have been doing for over 2 years now, since we had to leave the community service building. We have been unable to secure our own location, and I totally get that. The behaviors of people are somewhat different than they were 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. So it's a much more challenging population to work with, but we have been working with them through this, as well as other programs we've run in concert with the city, warming centers, cooling centers. So we have that experience. This partnership has been extremely well done and is great. It's great on our part, and I believe on the Salvation Army part. From what we hear, we're working well together. We distribute roughly between 3,000 and 3,500 meals that are prepared by the Salvation Army and distributed by the 710 Club. And on top of that, the 710 Club also distributes a double bag lunch, upwards of 5,000 a month. So we're getting about 8,500 meals out there. But that, in fact, is less than it was when both the Salvation Army had sit-down kitchens and the 710 Club had sit-down kitchens. So a lot of people are missing out on food. We're able to get way more now that we're doing both in concert. And, you know, hopefully there will be a way to continue this. The 710 Club, one of the strong points of the 710 Club is we don't have a lot of bureaucracy. So when we're asked to do something, it can be done the next day. We've set things up and been able to do it that way. We just get there and do it and worry about the bureaucracy afterwards. And this is another example of it. It was a matter of renting a van because the van we have is too small to carry the stuff that we need, hiring a couple of employees because you don't always want to do things with volunteers, and the 710 Club is primarily volunteer driven. So I have employees that have worked with me through the warming centers as well as this, and they're usually the same employees, and they don't mind that it's only 4 hours a day. I've got one who's a single mom, so her kids go to school. She's there when they come back. So it seems to work for both our employees. It works great for the people we're serving. And what we've also noticed with both programs is that seniors are accessing them. More and more people that aren't street entrenched are accessing those programs. And I'm sure everyone here knows the price of food has gone up and it's getting harder and harder to access. Loaves and Fishes is doing a wonderful job, but they can't get everybody. So this partnership, I like partnerships. I think they work well. Right now we're doing some stuff with the SRO in concert with them with regards to cooling centers. And the Nanaimo Community Advisory Board is also looking at warming spaces and a drop-in space. But looking at where we can locate these, how they should be set up so that they don't cause major impact on the community. Mitigating impact is huge. And personally, I will not run a program that's not safe. Even when I set up the first safe injection site in the City Hall parking lot.
And 1 minute, Mr. Fuller.
That was done in a safe manner. All the programs I do are done in a safe manner. We always had 2 people on, never one. If there was only going to be one, that program did not run that day. And I would be doing the same thing with this because it is a challenging population. And good for the Salvation Army for being willing to partner with us. And we need way more of those partnerships in this city and way more with reputable organizations like the Salvation Army and the 710 Club. And I'm always looking to partner with others, and hopefully they're listening, because I think that's how we can do better in this community. So thank you. If you have any questions, feel free.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fuller. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. You mentioned that you're seeing a lot more seniors.
Yes.
And are those people housed, or do you know, are they on our streets as well?
Many of them are housed, but there are a lot more that are on the streets. I no longer live in the downtown area. I live out in South Forks Road now, and I see a lot of older people in campers and younger people. That's part of the homeless population we don't really get to know a lot about, but we are seeing a lot of that. Seniors and some of the campers coming down. We distribute at the showers and we distribute the Salvation Army meals at the OPS site. And even there, we're seeing seniors come walking in on a regular basis to get food.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere and then Councillor Perino.
Thank you. Through you to the delegation. For the people that you're serving the breakfast meals to, are they able to access similar programs, or is there any other type of meal program that they're able to access?
If they have ID, they can get involved with Loaves and Fishes. There's not really much out there for regular meal programs. When the 7 Tanklow started, it did a lot with families, but that dropped off as the school board picked that up. So while some people end up getting served more, other people get shoved aside, and there's just not a lot out there. And reputable organizations being able to serve them is key.
And as far as the consistency of being able to provide the breakfast program 7 days a week, are you seeing people who are now relying on that for breakfast meals and who may not be getting a meal elsewhere?
Oh yeah, yeah, and primarily people that are coming to the OPS site. Many of them were up on Victoria Road at one point when that was getting really bad. I mean, there's fewer there now than there were, and I think that's in part due to the opening of the OPS site. But it's also in part to them being able to get meals. We've been told by them, and you hear these things anecdotally through the news, that, you know, if people can't get fed, they're gonna get fed somehow. And it's usually not legally. And we've been told that to our face. I've had that told to me, that, you know, if we can't get something to eat, we have to get it somewhere. And that's not necessarily in a good way.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perino, and then Councillor Manley.
Your Worship, through you to Mr. Fuller. First of all, I just want to thank you for what you do. It's incredible and it's inspiring. So I really appreciate it. The question that I wanted to ask you was the numbers, just if you could just relay those again. Did you say 3,500 breakfasts a month? And
Yes.
about 5,000 lunches?
That's through this partnership with the Salvation Army. That's 3,500 breakfasts, hot breakfasts,
Just the
7
logistics.
days a week.
Wow,
that
incredible.
we do that. It is, but like I say, it's actually less than it used to be.
Yeah,
So a lot of people aren't able to get what they need.
well done, thank you.
Thank you, and Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the delegation, can you tell me where where you're doing distribution? You've got a van, you're taking stuff around different locations, or?
Well, what we're doing, and we're adapting that at this point again, and provided funding becomes available, we'll continue doing it. But currently we do both the OPS site and the shower program downtown, or down at Caledonia, I mean. And that one we also, before the breakfast program, the partnership starts, I'm usually down there dropping off 30, 35 double bag lunches that they will hand out too. Now, those same people don't necessarily wait around for the hot breakfast. So we're actually serving way more people. It's not the same people getting it all, but it's still not enough.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you very much for the presentation tonight. Appreciate it. The next is Baron Muller, Salvation Army New Hope Center. Mr. Muller, come on down, introduce yourself for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes like Mr. Fuller, and I will let you know when there's a minute left.
Thank you,
And
Your
welcome.
Worship. So Mayor and Council, good evening. And the gallery, I think I got the terminology right. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I do represent the Salvation Army New Hope Center this evening, and we are, I'm certainly here to speak in favor of the possibility of continuing funding a food program that has been feeding people in dire need in our city. I think as we look at taking projects on, it's sometimes good to go back to the roots. The Salvation Army stands on 3 pillars. We exist to share the love of Jesus Christ, to meet human need, and to be a transforming influence in communities of the world. This transformative initiative is something that is very near and dear to the New Hope Center, and we are much wanting to open our doors and our hearts in a way that impacts people in need. 130 years ago in downtown Nanaimo, the first building that the Salvation Army occupied was constructed, and I'm told that one of the first things they did was unpack a kettle and start making soup. That has been the hallmark of the Salvation Army, that they feed people. And I think that that's not accidental. They feed people because people are hungry, but they also feed people because when people are fed, that need then creates an opportunity for conversation. And when people are not preoccupied with wanting to take care of their need for nutrition, then they are able to be receptive to other things. I was speaking to someone today, and I said, I have yet to speak to someone on the street in Nanaimo who tells me that they are delighted and happy to be where they are with no want or need to make a change. People are not happy where they are on the street, and when they are ready, the Salvation Army is there to meet them and to help them in transition to improve their situation. Currently, the New Hope Center is looking at a renovation of that original building. It's 130 years old, the foundations are compromised, and we need to replace it. So that's a commitment of approximately $6 million. Additionally, we're spending about $10,000 every month in order to operate an off-site kitchen. The off-site kitchen feeds 35 men who are in our shelters and additionally 16 men who are staying in our CRF. And we are able to produce 100 meals a day in a food safe standard, in time-labeled, insulated containers to deliver safe food, which through a contract from the city, the 710 Club is able to distribute to people in need. We're very proud of the fact that even as we've had to relocate due to several circumstances, we have not missed a day since we took on that responsibility. Above and beyond those 100 meals, we were able to use some of our donations that we received to supplement additional food, and we distribute food to some other people who come to our center and ask for packages so that they can distribute them as they do their work in outreach to the homeless. We're very grateful for the support that we've received from the city. I want to thank you sincerely for helping us do the work that we are mandated to try and do. The Salvation Army has a red crest, and beside it, it says, "Giving Hope Today." That is what we do. It's what we do with what resources we have available. And through the generosity of the city, we've been able to do quite a bit of good. So thank you for that. We have the capacity, and we are willing to continue to produce the food that we've been producing with this contract. I'm very hopeful that we will be able to continue in a path forward. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to field them.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Mueller, over here.
Thank you.
No, it's okay, for your presentation. I'm curious, we knew that this funding was going to run out. Had your organization done any sourcing for external funding to keep it going?
The Salvation Army is working hard to produce food. We're also working on a project to produce shelter and to have a long-term solution for food. And in the way that we're designing our building, to have an access that is open for community so that we can provide other means of intervention as well. Because food is one piece, the coffee, the warming, an opportunity to learn something about health, opportunity to learn about ways that people can access other services in the community. This is also important. So the building project is a huge commitment that the Salvation Army is locally committing to provide.
Thank you so much for that. And a follow-up, if I may. When the building is complete, will it incorporate these food services, and will you still require external funding to deliver that program?
Thank you. We will continue to provide food services. That's what the Salvation Army has done for 130 years, so we're going to continue to do that here. How that's going to be carried forward, I can't say. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any, no, I can't see a yellow hand in Councillor Gesselbrock's screen. Can you, Ms. Gurry? No. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you very much for your attention and for the opportunity.
Salvation Army does. As I tell everybody, there's nothing more pleasing to satisfy your soul than taking money from people at Christmas time as they pass by into the liquor store. Forgive me. Mr. Glasson, East Wellington Farm Park. Please, sir, come down, introduce yourself, and you've heard the drill. You'll have 5 minutes. And I'll let you know when you're down to a minute left. Thank you for coming.
Your Worship.
Oh, sorry, just hang on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Councillor Eastmere has a motion she wants to bring. Sorry, I was not
Thank you.
jumping ahead.
This is related to the previous delegations. So I would like to put forward a motion for consideration that the existing breakfast program contract be extended for 4 months with funding from the daytime resource carry forward, acknowledging that the funding expired July 9th. Also that correspondence be sent to the Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction and the Minister of Housing requesting ongoing funding support for a permanent meal program to assist Nanaimo's unhoused population, and that a staff report on funding options for establishing a permanent meal program be provided for Council's consideration as part of the 2024 budget discussions.
Have a seat for a minute, Mr. Glasson. Sorry, jumping the gun here. We have a seconder in Councillor Perino. Councillor Eastmere, do you want to speak to it at all?
Yeah, thank you. If I may, this just at a gut level to me felt like a program that I wasn't comfortable just seeing end without us having a discussion about it as a council, because this was a program that was council supported. And at this time, as we're hearing, there aren't many other accessible daily meal programs that people have access to. And the thought of 100 people suddenly not having a breakfast meal or the single meal that they rely on, that didn't seem right to me. And when I started asking some questions about it, which is really why I'm here as a counselor, to ask questions and see what the options, because I'm not an expert on this at all. And we have many community experts who know the situation, but just in asking about it, learned that we did have a budget carry forward from a previous council decision to fund a potential daytime resource center, which sounds a great idea to me, but it hasn't come to fruition yet. So we do have $230,000 in unspent funds within that carry forward. So we do have potential funding we could turn to for this. And in hearing from the people who are delivering this program, hearing that it's beneficial, they believe in it, they're seeing the benefits of it, and I would hope that by extending it for 4 months and then reaching out to the province for support on this, because I think that's really who needs to be coming to the table on this, and asking for a staff report that we can consider as part of the 2024 budget deliberations, I think seems appropriate, and excited to see a willingness from the province to help us work on this entrenched encampment and unhoused population challenge that we're having right now. And so I'm optimistic we'll be able to work with them on that, but we do need to give a little bit more time to this necessary program. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and a couple of questions through you to staff. I'm just wondering, now we have funded this program in the past, is that correct? What are we looking at per month? I'm just wondering what the figures are.
So I'll give Ms. Brinkman.
Ms. Brinkman's going to come down and respond.
Well, she's just getting set up there. In terms of the past, so the 710 Club, as one of the delegations you heard here this evening, yes, previously did the breakfast program out of the Community Services Building, the city property on the corner of Purdue and Fitzwilliam Street. Yes. And then when that site was designated by the city for permanent housing, that building was demolished. And in the interim period, for I think it was 3 months, if I recall, the city did fund a breakfast program from the same fund. After that, we were successful in getting a grant program that allowed the breakfast funding to continue, but that grant was expiring this summer. So that's a little bit of the background. And I think on the costs to date, they've changed a little bit since we've gone mobile, but the number I believe is $35,000 a month, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, but I think $35,000 a month is what we've been spending right now on the current program.
So, Your Worship, I'm absolutely in favor of this and will be supporting it. I have a couple of thoughts about, my concern is there are many groups around town that need funding, and my concern is that, you know, where do you give the funds, and how do we record this, and are we getting reports back, things like that. So I'm just hoping that this is, it's Salvation Army, it's an excellent organization. I have no trouble, you know, the 710 Club, it's great. I just want to make sure that we are watching to make sure that we are being very fair to other organizations, and that we're doing our due diligence, because this is taxpayer money, that we are doing our due diligence to make sure that good planning, good governance, and so forth with the organizations is being done as well, in our protection of our taxpayers' funding.
Through the chair, yeah. So when the city first received the round 2 of the Strengthening Community Funds, and that was July 2022 when it was announced, the city staff put out an expression of interest to the nonprofit community who could serve the breakfast or offer the breakfast program. So really at that time, the Salvation Army was the only place that had a location. So they were able to offer that. The 710 Club also expressed interest, but they didn't have a location to serve a breakfast. And the real goal of that Strengthening Community Funds initially was to have an indoor breakfast program, because it was going to be during the winter. So that was kind of the main thing we were sort of looking for at that time. So the contract then was offered to the Salvation Army because they had an indoor space. And, but unfortunately, so that I think October, November, December, they were able to offer the breakfast program inside. But then, as we know, the building had some issues, and so they were forced to go to that distributed model. So then at that time, because the 710 Club had initially expressed interest in partnering and supporting, so we then turned to them to help with the distribution. So that's how we ended up with those organizations. And so with both organizations, we have a contract, and in that contract are terms, you know, good neighbor responsibility terms that we follow, and also reporting requirements, because we have reporting requirements to the provincial funders, so we need to collect that data and maintain responsibility with that as well.
You've answered all my questions. I'm pleased to hear that, you know, you're very aware and organized with this, and it's an important project. Feeding people comes first. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this. Normally, I'd like to have a staff report, but to me, this is an emergency situation where people aren't going to be fed. So I think by asking for the report, that will address all the concerns that have been raised by Councillor Perino and other ones. So for me, I think it's we can't have people going hungry. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Himmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to support this. But I do want to register some concern that we are we're playing catch up, and I agree this is a crisis. We're seeing services shut down, and we're raising funds that are meant for other things to fill that gap. This really rests with the province, and we need to see them fund it. We need to see them come to the table in a very different way. In 4 months, we're going to be having this conversation again, and I don't want to have the same go around. I would like more answers at that point, and I know that's not anyone in this room's responsibility. But I do just want to register that. Something I would like to see included in the staff report is some conversation around the Community Advisory Board and their role in helping to coordinate, and I include the SPO in this, those bodies that are meant to coordinate our collective response to these pressing issues, whether that's funding for food, funding for shelter, et cetera, et cetera. So we are providing city funds in an emergency situation to this crisis. If we were going to provide those funds in a more coordinated way, could they be used differently, more efficiently, serve more people in the long run, rather than this process that we've set up here today? So I'm in support, but with some deep reservations. Thank you.
Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you.
Sorry, there we go.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to thank fellow councillors for their comments and questions. And it's definitely my hope that in asking for a staff report on this, that I've been told by staff that they would also be consulting with our systems planning organization, and I really think that speaks to why they exist. We need to organize a plan so we have a better system, and that's all the words in that acronym. And I see them being able to help us cut through the noise on this and also work with the province so that we can effectively come up with a more long-term sustainable solution where it isn't always falling on us to deal with it in a crisis, and then we can actually plan a system that works better for everyone.
Thank you. Seeing no further speakers, all those in favor? Any opposed? Not seeing any. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Glass, my apologies. You can introduce yourself, and as I say, 5 minutes. When you've got a minute left, I'll let you know. And welcome. Thank you.
Your Worship and members of Council, it is my understanding that you only work with the best for this city. The City Plan and the East Wellington Park Plan both talk about regenerative agriculture, and I stand before you as the leading expert in regenerative agriculture for the context of Nanaimo. Agriculture, sorry, I'm losing my notes here already. I'm a valuable resource for whatever direction you take in your obligation for food security. I am a regenerative livestock manager currently leasing fields in East Wellington and the historic Westwood Farm, which is for sale again. I own a small home by the hospital. I graduated from NDSS and Capilano University. Regenerative agriculture is eliminating extractive practices. It is a global movement towards resilient systems. Why am I talking about regenerative agriculture? The most famous farmer in Nanaimo would say, everyone eats for a living. I know a lot of dog walkers, me included, but I know a lot more people who eat food multiple times a day. Food production, processing, transportation, distribution, equipment, services, and entertainment. Food, and it's all farmed. It is the root and soil of our economy, our ethics, and our environment. I participate with nature, recreating the ecological cycle of animal impact and long recovery. The sole purpose is to create maximum biodiversity of wild and domestic plants, animals, and ever-improving returns. Ethically, I hand-raise animals from day old to seeing their humane harvest often at my hands. Then I hand it to moms who feed their families the world's healthiest, most nutrient-dense food you can get here in Nanaimo. Let's keep the economics simple. The food dollar stays here. Marketing, production, processing, sales, and distribution right here. Jobs, direct jobs, supporting jobs, healthy, sustainable jobs. So say the boat never comes, like when we saw the shelves go empty during COVID. This is not a hypothetical. Let's put this in the city's safety plan. The animals that Glasson Farms has in East Wellington right now, all hands on deck. Harvest them all, get them cut in every butcher shop from Superette to Nesvog to Meatcraft. We could turn around 36,000 meals pretty much overnight. And I'm just getting started. It's a great story, but here's my reality. I am moving animals daily with light mobile electric fence across derelict fields I lease in Westwood, East Wellington. The chickens, turkeys, lamb, pigs, and beef spend 1 day a year per spot of ground. Otherwise, it is available for other users to thrive. Carbon sequestering grass, shrubs, trees, pollinators, deer, children, even dog walkers. This month, after 2.5 years trying, I have my first provincial license to kill poultry, rabbits, sheep, and goats. Next, I will build a trailer for beef and hogs. You need to make some rule changes for this to happen within city limits. We need cold storage and custom cutting, so I open a butcher shop where consumers pick up dinner and farmers get products packaged to sell. A public market is a rent-controlled city space for essential businesses to provide secure access to market. You say where, and let's build it. I'm doing this all by myself, but not alone. Growing Opportunities, the late Craig Evans, I'm filling a small part of his shoes with a big team, nonprofit. Jen and Craig facilitated the agricultural assessment report for the East Wellington Park by Hado and Hado. NACL has charitable status and is backing up me and Growing Opportunities. My farm mentors range from presidents of the Farmers Institutes, farmers markets, and industry associations here. I'm on their boards. Most entrepreneurs want to 10x their business and walk away. In the textbook Holistic Management, there is the goal community you want to achieve. I'm building my lifestyle business, then want to 10x how many farmers are in this town. I'm building the framework for us all to succeed. You guys can do it, and I'm here to help. My ask for you tonight is simple. The biggest farm field in the city, the East Wellington Park. Can we not call it that? It's part of the Agricultural Land Reserve, 5% of land in BC to feed us all. Call it for what it is, the East Wellington City Park. Sorry, the East Wellington City Farm. Missed my punchline, oh my gosh.
It's like a marriage. It doesn't go off without a hitch. Thank you very much. Stuck to the 5 minutes too. Any questions from council? Councillor Eastmere and then Councillor Hemmons, please.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Really interesting to hear more about regenerative agriculture. I'm curious, you mentioned a rule change that would be required to allow butchering of larger animals?
Butchering at all within the city. There are bylaws both within animal control and then also within zoning that only currently allow slaughter within the heaviest of industrial, which is Duke Point. Now, that is appropriate for old rules. You know, if Lilydale wanted to come to town, yeah, let's keep them over there. But in October of 2021, the provincial slaughter licenses changed to allow what is called now farm gate licenses, not only in just the most remote communities, the only place would be Sayward on the island, but now it's allowed in all communities. And so with that new rule change, that opens up the opportunity for this specific small-scale processing to happen on farms. And within the city limits, that is currently restricted. Now, I think that this is the perfect opportunity to create a distinction between small-scale services for small direct marketing farms locally versus industrial agriculture. So there's a great opportunity now to change the bylaws specifically to address this new license within the province of farm gate licensing.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmons and Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Your Worship. I support the farm gate license process. I bought half a cow from someone in East Wellington, and it was an amazing process to go to the farm and see where they are and to understand it was slaughtered and butchered and packaged there. My question for you, though, is that your one request of us is that we rename the park, correct? That's what you're asking here tonight?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. You mentioned the park was ALR land, is that correct?
That is correct.
So we don't have any control over ALR land?
It's owned by the city.
So it's not ALR land then?
Mr. Harding.
Your Worship, thank you. If Council recalls, we brought the East Wellington Park plan to Council 2 months ago for approval. We did have to get ALR approval for the plan. So what was going in there, as Council recalls, a lot of the objectives in that plan is for agriculture.
So we have to still, if we were to do that, we still have to get ALR approval. I guess that's just my question. Thanks. And then I have a question for staff after. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Kesselbrock. Pardon me. Yes, Kesselbrock and then Manley.
Yeah, I just had a question to Mr. Glasson regarding the well, pretty cool screen just appeared on mine. I'm like tessellated. A question for the delegation regarding what bylaws would help enable the farm gate. I wasn't quite clear on that, and what currently is a barrier.
Perhaps that's something we should follow up with staff about. You know, my job is to use farm gate licenses and provide the food, and and at the times when I have to work within the bylaws, know them, which I don't know specifically the verbiage and exactly where they sit. However, I'm sure that I'm sure staff working with me can find those.
Okay, great. Thank you. That'd be interesting to investigate. And I do like the ring of the Wellington farm.
The city farm. We have to add city farm.
Well, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manley, and then Councillor Armstrong again.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. So you want to rename the park the city farm? You're grazing animals right next to it? Are you interested in seeing animals grazed on the Wellington city lands, and do you see an advantage to doing that for the land itself?
Currently, I'm grazing. My cattle herd is on the field directly next to what originally would have been all part of the same contiguous property. So yesterday I walked my field and I walked the park side by side along the fence road. I am in support of the East Wellington Park plan. I think it reads well. I think the use of the word regenerative agriculture and then the current what's written in the plan for the agricultural use, in my mind, I think that I can offer some education on what regenerative agriculture is and what appropriate regenerative agriculture practices would be on that property. So I think that that there's wonderful neighbors in that neighborhood, that there's biologists, there's construction workers, there project planners, and then myself, who are working on that land and the land right next to it. And so I think in enacting the greater plan of the ecological restoration and somewhat of a permaculture design, especially with seeing the large infrastructure projects like the turf fields that are going in, I think the city has the ability to create a significant regenerative agriculture, permaculture installation and demonstration place in that park that would be a place where the farming community within the East Wellington and the Millstone River corridor could all come together and have a demonstration place that is appropriate for all users. And I believe that it is what I see with my understanding of regenerative agriculture and what is currently in the East Wellington Park plan. I do believe they align.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong?
My question's for staff.
Okay. No more questions for the delegation? Not seeing any hands. Thank you very much, Mr. Glasson. Appreciate your presentation tonight.
Thank you. I need to go feed pigs, move cheap.
I just wanted to know, sorry, I got the wrong name. Mr. Glasson mentioned that there's a 2021 provincial license change. Does our bylaw conform with that change, do you know?
I'm sorry, Worship, I think we'd have to look into that more closely. I'm not familiar with the,
Okay,
the 2021 change. What I would say is, I think the delegation's correct. There's probably prohibitions in our both zoning bylaw and possibly our animal responsibility bylaw that would have to be amended, but I'd have to get back to you on that.
Thank you.
So you're suggesting it might be worthwhile for Mr. Glasson to put his concerns in writing more specifically, and that would assist staff perhaps advising him accordingly.
Yes.
Your Worship, we'll connect with him before he leaves tonight, and we'll follow up. We'll connect with him this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That completes delegations. The next item are reports. And the first is Development Variance Permit Application Number DVP 452-1150 Terminal Avenue North. Mr. Lindsay, please. Oh, Mr. Holm. And thank you for your timely advice earlier tonight. I say this publicly. Your stupid mayor left his window down on the passenger side of his vehicle, and nothing untoward happened in 4 hours of it being abandoned in the parking lot below. It's a compliment to the good work of our CSOs and the honesty of Nanaimo citizens, or the lack of valuables in my car.
Thank you, Your Worship. Appreciate that. This is a development variance permit for an LED sign replacement to existing drive-through signs at Burger King at Terminal Park Mall, and property address at 1150 Terminal Avenue North. Like I say, the proposal is to replace existing drive-through signage with its backlit signage currently with LED menu board signage. There's a display of what's proposed there overhead. Currently, the city's sign bylaw does not allow for LED or animated signage without a variance, and council has adopted criteria to guide the evaluation of what's appropriate for LED signs. Some of the criteria speak to size limitations, rate of change and transition of images, as well as brightness control and automatic dimming and hours of operation. What's proposed here is compliant with the guidelines that help staff evaluate LED sign proposals with council's policy. Recommendation in this case is to support the requested variance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gurry, my understanding is that anyone wishing to speak to this, to development variance permit application number BP 452-1150 Terminal Avenue North, should speak up now. And do we have Mr. Dillon via Zoom?
We do, Your Worship, so we'll just get him on here. Mr. Dillon, if you are there, the item is now on the agenda and you are permitted to speak.
Mr. Dillon, good evening and welcome.
Good evening. I'm just here to answer questions if anybody has any questions as to the application. I'm the franchisee of this location, so I'm here for any questions that may come up.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question through you to staff. In fact, not to Mr. Dillon particularly, but I'm wondering, we had a very similar motion come forward, and I believe it was either late 2022 or very early 2023, and I think it was regarding the McDonald's. Is this very similar?
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Perino, yes, this is quite similar to the request for McDonald's.
Okay.
As well, that was the Nanaimo North, the McDonald's location near Nanaimo North. Actually, there are multiple locations.
Yes, I thought so too, yes. And we did put those through, is that correct? We did agree to those.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone care to make the recommended motion then? If there's no further questions, moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Perino. Any discussion with respect to the recommended motion? Not seeing any. All those in favor and those opposed? Councillor Easton, you were in favor? You were up and down so fast, sorry. Councillors Manley and Brown and Gesselbrock opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Dillon. You're free. You don't, unless you wish to stay and listen to the rest of the council meeting. It looks like he's frozen. The next is development permit application number DP 1293-582 Bradley Street. Mr. Holm again, not Mr. Lindsay. Mr. Holm, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a nice infill, 5-unit infill project on an existing zoned parcel in the Townsite neighborhood. Raymond DeBeeld Architect Inc. is the designer applicant and is present tonight as well. I believe has formed a delegation likely to answer questions if required. This is, again, a 5-unit multifamily development, a nice infill project, 3 stories in height. If you could bring up attachment C, it'll show you we can show you the site plan. Nice compact development, parking in the rear, presence on Bradley. If you could bring up the building elevations on attachment D, you can see the what's proposed there, design-wise. 3-story building. There are 5 2-bedroom units as proposed, and they have a butterfly roof. Materials are traditional and contemporary in nature. Number of variances proposed, including minor variances to side yard, maximum fence height, landscape buffer, driveway width, and long-term bicycle aisle width. Kind of a random one, that last one, but yeah, a number of variances proposed, but a nice infill project in the Townsite neighborhood. Happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holm. We have Mr. DeBeeld present. Welcome and good evening. My understanding is you're here just to answer questions if any council members have questions. Are there any questions for Mr. DeBeeld? Seeing none, someone care to make the recommended motion? Move Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Brown. Any discussion? Councillor Eastmere, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this project was really well received by the design advisory panel, and they did make a couple of recommendations that have been incorporated, and yeah, it was nice to see this density project with that will be a good fit for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Very good. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'll be supporting this. I think I commented once before that an earlier iteration of this project came before council several years ago, and I did not support it at that time, but I'm much more impressed with this current proposal, so happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No other speakers. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is development permit application number DP 1284-380 and 385 Watfield Avenue. Mr. Holm again, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This will be familiar to Council, the site of a recently adopted zoning amendment. In that case, a comprehensive development zone. Property on 4th and Watfield, between 4th and 3rd Watfield, off Howard Avenue. You can see the property outlined in red overhead. What's proposed here is a multifamily townhouse development consisting of a total of 168 dwelling units, which you can see the development pattern outlined there on the plan overhead. Interesting here too, through the rezoning application, the applicant committed to at least 50% family-friendly housing. In this case, they've exceeded that pledge. What's proposed here is 147 three-bedroom units and 21 four-bedroom units, which is quite a nice complement to family housing in the area. So this is development permit stage, so development permit application. If you could bring up attachment D, you'll see the building elevations and details presented there. All the parking for the proposed development will be provided on site with the addition of 14 visitor parking stalls as well. A series of, the site is well connected, integrates pedestrian connections very well with a number of multi-use trails provided through the site, linking through to 4th and through to Watfield and Howard as well. Those are going to be a nice addition to the neighborhood, as well as some park land through phased development as proposed here. So this is consistent with applicable design guidelines, as well as Councillor Eastmere pointed out with the previous application, has been reviewed by the Design Advisory Panel with recommendations to support the proposal. Some minor variances proposed, side yard variance, as well as a minor building height variance proposed. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown, and then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Your Worship. Depending on the discussion, I'm going to support this, but I'm just curious, if they went through a CD zone, why are they seeking variance?
That's, through Your Worship, that's a good question. Through refinement in design, they identified that they needed a little bit of variation to the comprehensive development zone that was approved. These are quite minor in nature, building height of ½ meter. When they did the detailed grading analysis and the plans evolved through the grading designs for the site, as well as the building designs. And then as well, the side yard setbacks are relative to building height. So they're asking for, there's a 3 meter setback required for buildings beyond 9 meters. They're asking for slightly less than that. So minor variances in the grand scheme of things, but I do understand the question that there was a thorough design done through the comprehensive development zoning process. Through further refinement, they did identify additional variances to that bylaw were required.
Thanks so much, and happy to support, and more happy that it's moving along so quickly, but thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, I just have a question on where the traffic's going to exit. Is it going to be off of Watfield onto 4th?
Through Your Worship, yeah, generally that would be the main exit. There is connection through Watfield to 3rd Street as well.
Thank you. I just recall there was community issues with the amount of traffic. Thanks.
Councillor Perino and then Councillor Manley.
Your Worship, I was prepared to put the motion on the floor.
Please. Seconded, Councillor Hemmons.
And if I could just say, just so nice to see family-friendly homes. Get the shovel in the ground. Let's get going. It's good to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to see this development going forward as well. I'm just curious about the Foster Street Road Reserve and extension. Is that going to be built built in once the project is done? Or is that waiting for some other date before that road is built?
Thank you, through your worship. Good question. So that is a protection for a long-term potential road network connection there between Watfield through to Hillcrest in that area. That wouldn't happen with this development. What's proposed there is a pedestrian connection in place of the road at this point, but the covenant would provide for, in the future if needed, ultimately the road connection through that area.
Is that because there's the other property yet to develop beside it that would need that road right of way as well, or?
Yeah, through your worship. If there's development potential along Wakasai as well, there may be need for additional. You can see the green space on the. Thank you for pulling that up. Attachment C there. You can see the green space. It says Foster Street Road Reserve on the north edge of the plan there. Potentially that would connect Watfield through to Hillcrest, or at least protect for that possibility in the future. There's no design for that now, but there could be a need for additional road connectivity there in the future. It'll be reserved for pedestrians in the interim.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm very pleased to support this tonight. If my calculations are correct, at 147 three-bedroom units and 21 four-bedroom units, assuming everyone gets a bedroom as opposed to the way many of us were raised with 2 or 3 in one bedroom. Not that I'm, filling out the log cabin or anything tonight, but having said that, this would provide housing for 525 people in one development, and all family friendly with 4 and 3-bedroom units. So unless I hear any further comments, all those in favor and any opposed, none, motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is development permit application number DP 1235-3401 Barrington Road. Mr. Holm again, please.
Great. Thank you, Your Worship. And this is a development permit application again, and maybe I'll just point out that there is a bit of a theme here. You're seeing these 3 applications tonight anyway. They are similar in form, although completely different scale in different parts of the city. But this again is a family-friendly, so three bedroom units, 26 3-bedroom units. And this is in the Lindley Valley area near off Rock City Road, Barrington area. This is an application from Gustova De Rosa on behalf of Bill Beadle of Barrington Townhomes Limited. This is future phases 5, 6, and 7 of an existing strata development in the area, which you can kind of make out from the plan overhead. So the property outlined in red, you can see it's the extension of an existing multifamily strata. The buildings are stepped with the grade, and if you could bring up the site plan, please, and then follow through with that's attachment D and then attachment E, building elevations. You get a sense of what's proposed there. So the buildings are stepped with the grade, and the site design retains natural features, including rock outcrops and mature trees as much as possible there on the site. A steeply sloping site, and the buildings are designed to step with the grade. The proposed design includes strong street presence, natural materials including wood and stone accents, and well-defined individual unit entrances. The development's consistent with the applicable development permit area guidelines, so general form and character design guidelines, as well as the steep slope development permit area guidelines. Was reviewed by the design advisory panel with recommendations that have been followed through as much as possible by the applicant on that. Minor variances here are requested, building height and a retaining wall fence height variance as well. So given the challenging grades, that's not surprising, but another nice addition to family-friendly housing in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holm. Any questions for Mr. Holm? If not, would someone care to make the recommended motion? Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is liquor license application number LA 154-Unit 2, 5771 Turner Road. I'm going to declare a conflict only because I've known Mr. Din, very fine man that he is, for a very long time. I wasn't aware that he was associated with this application, and I know that certainly in the relatively distant past, however, my wife has given him professional services, and I just think it would probably be inappropriate for me to participate in this. So, Councillor Perino, you can assume the chair, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll try and get through this again. Minimal experience. Okay, this is going to be introduced by Mr. Lindsay.
Just to throw you a curveball, I'll turn it over to Mr. Holm.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Holm.
Great. Thank you, Chair. This is a liquor license application, so this is the city doing the work required of the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch to notify and give comment resolution with regard to an existing or to a new liquor license. In this case, for a nail spa. So a request for a liquor license for an existing nail spa. This is Posh Nail Spas in the Longwood Station development. In this case, this application was previously received for information by council. There was a public meeting held on June 15th. A notice was provided of the public meeting for anybody that might be interested in commenting. As well, comment sheets or opportunity to submit comment sheets was also provided. We have 35 comment sheets attached to the council report as attachment D if you're interested. They're there to read. We've been advised by the RCMP that they have no concerns with respect to public safety based on the proposal. The application meets the criteria that council's required to evaluate from the Liquor Control and Regulation Branch, and recommendation is to support the application. Thank you.
And we have a delegation, is that correct? Mr. Din? Yes, thank you. Did you wish to speak to this? No? Just any questions? Okay, good, thank you so much. Are there any questions of council? Councillor Eastmer?
Thank you. Through you to staff, just in looking at the comments provided, which I really appreciate everyone who took the time to submit those. There's a question about whether this change would impact people who are bringing minors along with them to the appointment, and I just wondered, would that have any impact? Would minors have to be sequestered? Would they still be able to attend?
Yeah, they can still attend. If you're going to speak, maybe we can get you to come up to the microphone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, there's no impact whatsoever.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes, did you want to answer that question as well from your understanding?
No, thank you. I don't have anything further to add.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Eastmer, enough? Any other comments? The wish of council, please. Councillor Hemmons is moving it. A seconder? Seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Any other comments? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you so much. Thank you. And we could ask His Worship to come back in.
Thank you very much. All right, the next item is Provincial Community Safety and Wellbeing Grants Fund. Mr. Lindsay, or is it Ms.
Thank you.
Bopal-Singh?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start, and if there's any questions, I think Ms. Bopal-Singh is going to join me. I think Council will recall earlier this year when we had a visit from the Premier and Minister Farnworth and the Attorney General, there was an announcement on that day that the city was receiving $75,000. We've since been able to clarify that the intent of that money was for an overall community safety and well-being plan. Staff have worked with the staff at the province and made sure that they were understood that we had a downtown safety plan, we had a health and housing action plan. Council's done a significant amount of work recently on your gun and gang violence, so we've cut of all the basic elements already, and as such they've agreed to allow us to use that $75,000 for a review and potential expansion of the downtown safety plan. So our recommendation here this evening is for council to direct us to proceed with that work. So happy to.
Thank you very much, Councillor Armstrong.
Move the recommendation.
Seconded Councillor Hemmons. Councillor Armstrong, do you want to speak to it? No? Councillor Thorpe?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be happy to support this. The Community Safety Action Plan for downtown was a really significant initiative that the city undertook, and I think it's important that any program as significant as that is monitored and evaluated. And I look forward to the report when it comes back, and I'm expecting good things. And if that is the case, then we'll have future discussions about possibly augmenting the program or expanding it or whatever. But the first step is to evaluate, make sure we're getting good money for our good value for our money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. I thought someone might want to ask Ms. Bopel saying something. She's come down to the front here expecting a severe grilling. Thank you very much. Next item is correspondence, which is obvious. The letter from Tom McCarthy, the Deputy Minister, rezoning application RA 475. And then we're bylaws, Ms. Gurry, and the first is fees and charges amendment bylaw 2023 number 7336.05. Moved by Councillor Perino. Yeah, you're going to have to read it. Sorry, yes. Thank you.
Sorry, Your Worship, I was waiting for you to say, go ahead and read it. The motion that fees and charges amendment bylaw 2023 number 7336.05, a bylaw to include the facility admission rates and other associated fees be adopted.
Seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Eastmere declaring a conflict on the next two. Yes. Sorry. The next is zoning amendment bylaw 2022 number 4500.204. Councillor Perino.
Sorry, Your Worship, that Council defer consideration of the bylaw until its regular meeting of September 25th, 2023.
And seconded Councillor Brown. Any, I was going to say, all those in favor and any opposed? Councillor Gesselbrock, I didn't see your hand one way or t'other. Did I miss it? In favor? Yes. Yes, thank you very much. I think it's important to just say this at this stage, that the province, through Deputy Minister McCarthy, has stated its view that it's important that time be provided for a facilitated process to take place in relation to the property, and we know that Synamic has a long-standing request to reject or defer the application. In light of that and the vote tonight, hopefully a deferral to September will provide ample time for the concerns of Synamic and the province to be addressed. Back on September the 25th, this matter will come before Council for consideration on its merits. And the next motion is land use contract discharge bylaw 2022 number 7355. Councillor Perino.
Council defer to consideration of the bylaw until its regular meeting of September 25th, 2023.
Seconded. Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Carries. We have no notices of motion. No other business that I'm aware of, Ms. Gurry. And we'll see if there's anything on question period. No, nothing on question period. Moved Councillor Brown for adjournment, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Rudolph.
Yay, Jake!